This is a story about quiet strength, hidden brilliance, and the moment one overlooked woman changes everything. Comment where you're watching from. Rate this story out of 10, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The digital clock on the wall blinked 4:38 a.m. when the back door clicked open. The icy New York wind sliced down the alley like a razor. But Tiana barely noticed. She'd grown used to the sting. She adjusted her apron, tied her curly hair into a tight bun, and stepped into the glowing, spotless kitchen of Briar and Sage, one of Manhattan's most exclusive fine dining restaurants. No one greeted her. No one ever did. She didn't mind. She wasn't here for the small talk. Her job was simple. Wash, scrub, mop, clean, peel vegetables, remove scales, disinfect knives. In a room full of egos and accolades, Tiana moved like vapor, silent, unnoticed, necessary. Briar and Sage was known for its artful plating and meticulously sourced ingredients. Every knife was top tier. Every copper pan gleamed like gold. The chefs here didn't just cook, they performed. And Tiana? She was the one who cleaned up after the show. She didn't have a resume with culinary school credits. No framed certificates or Instagram followers to boast about. What she had were hands seasoned by years of cooking with her grandmother, a nose that could detect the faintest spice in a pot, and a heart that beat in rhythm with a hot kitchen. But no one cared about that. Her boss, executive chef Victor Langston, definitely didn't. Victor was a man of precision and reputation. His jackets were always pristine white, his tone clipped, his expectations sky high. Tiana had never heard him raise his voice. But his disapproval could cut deeper than any knife. He called her kitchen help, rarely used her name, and never, not once, asked her opinion. It was okay. She knew where she stood. Each morning before the sun rose, she tackled what others avoided: gutting fish, scraping dried sauce from counters, tossing spoiled produce. She did it all quickly, silently, perfectly. And when the staff left for the night, she stayed behind. That's when the real cooking happened. Tiana waited until the kitchen was empty. The lights dimmed, using scraps destined for the trash, trimmings of salmon, wilted herbs, day-old cream. She created quiet masterpieces, plated with care. Each dish was a story, a memory. Flavors that reminded her of Sunday mornings on her grandma's porch or nights cooking for her little brothers after their mom's double shifts. She never served these dishes, just stored them in plain metal containers, labeled only with the initials, TL, in small, neat handwriting. She hid them at the back of the walk-in fridge, behind bulk items no one bothered to check. Until the morning it all changed. The kitchen buzzed with electricity that day. Word was a food critic from the Taster's Ledger, one of the most influential culinary publications in the country, would be dining at Briar and Sage for lunch. No one knew exactly who. But Chef Victor was on edge, more rigid than usual, demanding perfection from every station. Tiana moved as she always did, quick, quiet, invisible. Around 11 a.m., chaos took full control. Orders were flying, servers were sprinting, and line cooks were elbow-deep in sauces and sauté pans. In the middle of the frenzy, sous chef Matteo rushed to the walk-in fridge for a backup salmon prep. He spotted a silver container tucked behind a stack of pickled onions. Quickly grabbed it, and didn't check the label. No time. He thought it was Victor's prep from the night before. He reheated it, garnished it, and plated it for table 12. No one thought twice. 10 minutes later, a server burst back into the kitchen with wide eyes. "Table 12 wants to meet the chef," she said, breathless. Victor turned slowly, wiping his hands with a white towel. "Which dish?" "The salmon. Says it's unlike anything he's had all year. Wants to know the inspiration." Victor raised an eyebrow. "That's not one of our lunch specials." Matteo turned pale. "I thought it was your pre-prep." "Chef, it was in the fridge. Label said TL. Tucked in the back." Victor froze. He marched toward the fridge, yanked open the steel door, and rifled through the shelves until he found a near-empty container. The initials were unmistakable. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. Then his eyes locked onto Tiana, who was at the sink, scrubbing down a cutting board. "You," he said sharply. "Come here." She did. "Did you make something with the salmon last night?" Tiana didn't flinch. "Yes, chef." They were scraps from the waste bin. I cooked after hours. I didn't mean for anyone to. You used my ingredients without permission? They were being thrown out. I cleaned everything after. Victor's jaw tensed. He turned and threw the container into the sink with a loud clang. You do not cook in this kitchen. You prep. You clean. That is your job. You understand me? Yes, chef, she replied calmly. His voice dropped to a threatening whisper. Well, congratulations. Now a guest thinks your dish is mine. He wants to meet the chef. And I told him it was me. Tiana looked at him steadily. So your problem isn't that I cooked. It's that someone liked it. The kitchen froze. No one spoke. The line cooks held their breath. Victor leaned in. Barely audible. If you walk out there and say one word, you're finished, fired, blacklisted. I'll make sure no restaurant in this city touches your resume. Stay quiet. Understand? Tiana didn't move. In the dining room, the man at table 12 waited patiently. He was well dressed but understated, gray jacket, tortoiseshell glasses, quiet authority in his posture. His name was David Mercer. But that hadn't been revealed yet. He hadn't touched the rest of his meal. Just the salmon. He'd taken notes on a small leather pad. Then asked for the chef. Victor stepped into the dining room. Shoulders squared. I'm Chef Langston. I heard you requested me. David looked up, his expression polite but cool. That salmon, he said, it's not on the menu. No, Victor said with a rehearsed smile. Sometimes I test new recipes with trusted guests. Interesting, David murmured. The lemon wasn't a garnish, it was built into the mash. And the herb crust. That wasn't your usual style. Victor stiffened. I like to experiment. David stared at him for a beat longer. Then spoke plainly. I want to meet the person who made that dish. Not the name on the jacket. The person behind the plate. Victor hesitated. David added, if I don't, I'm walking. And I won't be quiet about it. Victor swallowed. He gave a tight nod and turned back toward the kitchen. He had no choice. The kitchen door swung open with a burst of cold air from the dining room. Victor marched back in, face set like stone, his jaw grinding tight. Every pair of eyes followed him, sensing the weight of something unraveling. Tiana, he barked. She didn't jump. She didn't flinch. Come with me. The kitchen had never been so still. Even the hiss of pans seemed to soften as she wiped her hands on her apron and stepped away from the prep table. Every cook, every dishwasher, watched her walk across the tile floor, this time not as a shadow, but as someone with purpose. Victor held the door for her but didn't look at her. As she passed through, her breath hitched, but she didn't show it. She stepped into the dining room, the hum of voices and clinking glasses returning like a low tide in her ears. Table 12 sat near the center of the room beneath a hanging globe light. David Mercer stood as she approached. He didn't smile like someone greeting a surprise. He didn't extend his hand like he was doing her a favor. He simply nodded, a silent sign of respect. You made the salmon, he said, not as a question, but a certainty. Tiana nodded once. Yes, sir. Victor hovered a few feet behind, arms crossed, stiff as a statue. David motioned for her to sit, but she shook her head. I'm not a server. I work in the kitchen. He chuckled, not unkindly. I'm not asking you to serve, just to speak. She glanced back at Victor. His eyes burned. Her fingers trembled slightly at her sides, but her voice was steady. It wasn't supposed to be served, she said. I used leftover ingredients that were going to be tossed. I cook for myself sometimes after everyone leaves. David studied her. That dish had memory in it, and control, the kind of control that doesn't come from guessing. Where did it come from? My grandmother, she said softly. She used to cook a version with canned lemon and breadcrumbs when we couldn't afford more. I made it my way, with panko, fresh herbs, and Meyer lemon. And the potatoes? My mom. We mashed whatever we had, canned yams, instant flakes, sometimes just squash. She always added zest because we never had enough butter. David's gaze didn't waver. Did you go to culinary school? No, sir. Train under anyone? No. I've worked here almost 3 years. I prep. I clean. I'm not even allowed to touch the burners. He raised his brows. That's criminal. Behind her, Victor shifted. Mr. Mercer, if I may. David held up a hand. Chef Langston, I appreciate your time. I'll speak with Miss Tiana, she said. Tiana Lewis. David smiled. Tiana, that was the best salmon I've had this year. Possibly in the last 5. And I don't say that lightly. She blinked. I travel. I eat. I take notes. What you made had narrative, balance, heart. Victor stepped forward, visibly straining. She was acting outside her role. This was not sanctioned. It's not representative of the restaurant. David stood. And yet it was the best dish that came out of your kitchen today. He reached into his pocket and handed Tiana a card. David Mercer, culinary consultant, private reviewer and food historian. In the corner, subtle but unmistakable, a gold-embossed star. If you ever leave this place, he said, voice lower now, call me. You've got something rare. Tiana took the card with both hands, like it might disappear. Then, without another word, David nodded politely and walked out the door. As soon as it closed behind him, the dining room softened, conversations resumed, forks clinked again. But something had shifted in the air. Tiana stood still, unsure of whether to smile or run. Victor hissed from behind her, get back to the kitchen. Now. She didn't answer, just turned and walked back through the swinging doors. The silence around her louder than ever. Back in the kitchen, Victor exploded. You think this is a game? He yelled. You just embarrassed me in front of David Mercer. You know what kind of connections that man has? Tiana untied her apron, slowly, her face calm. I didn't plan this, she said. I wasn't trying to steal credit. You're the one who lied. A couple of cooks paused mid-task. One set his spatula down quietly. You've been using my kitchen for practice. My food, my name. No, she said, sharper now. Your trash, your scraps, your cast-offs. I made something out of what you considered useless. Victor stepped closer, voice low. You don't belong in this kitchen. You never did. You're a cleaner with delusions of grandeur. You think one good plate makes you a chef? No, she said, but it means I can cook. And someone finally saw it. He sneered. You'll never work in this city again. You don't have a degree, a portfolio, a network. No one's coming to save you. Tiana met his eyes. I'm not asking to be saved. I'm asking to be seen. The room froze. Victor pointed toward the back door. You're done. But the words didn't land the way he expected. Not with the usual force. Not with the usual fear. One of the line cooks cleared his throat. She's the one who made that dish. Another nodded. I tasted the sauce before it went out. I thought it was too good to be one of Victor's. Victor's eyes widened. Excuse me? Mateo stepped forward now. With all due respect, chef, she's the best instinctual cook I've seen. Maybe ever. Victor looked around, eyes darting. You're all replaceable. But it was too late. The mood had changed. The center of the kitchen had shifted. Tiana picked up her apron and walked slowly to her locker. I'll leave, she said softly, but you'll remember this moment. Not because I left, but because you lost the kitchen when you forgot who actually loved the food. No one stopped her. No one looked away. She walked out the back door with nothing but a canvas tote over her shoulder, and a single business card in her hand. The cold wind met her face. But it felt different now. Sharper, clearer. She inhaled deeply, for once tasting the air like a new ingredient. This wasn't the end. It was the very first bite. It was strange how silence could be both deafening and freeing. The morning after she left the restaurant, Tiana woke up to the soft rustling of the wind outside her small apartment window. No alarm, no rush, no prepping trays of vegetables for someone else's menu. Just space, empty, terrifying, but hers. On the corner of her chipped kitchen table sat the card from David Mercer. She'd placed it there the night before, afraid to misplace it, even more afraid to believe it meant something real. She stared at it now, sipping instant coffee, wondering if she dared call him. 3 hours passed. She finally picked up the phone. The line rang once, twice. David Mercer. She froze. Hello? He said again, his tone warm but direct. Hi, this is Tiana Lewis. There was a beat. Then, I was hoping you'd call. She didn't smile. Not yet. I wasn't sure if you meant it. The card. I don't hand out compliments, Miss Lewis, or invitations. Tiana felt her shoulders relax slightly. I'm not calling to ask for a handout. Didn't think you were. He replied, "I'm calling because I don't know what comes next. I've been cooking my whole life but always behind someone else's name. Now, I don't have a kitchen. Or a paycheck." David let the silence sit for a second. Then said, "Good. That means you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To stop waiting for permission." 3 weeks later, an old laundromat on the south side stood stripped bare, the scent of detergent still lingering in the walls. Tiana stood in the center of it, hands on hips, trying to see past the peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. "This place?" Nia asked beside her. "You're sure? It's 5 blocks from where I grew up. No rent up front for 3 months. It's mine if I want it." Nia raised a brow. "It's also falling apart." "I know," Tiana said, "but so was I and I still cooked." They shared a look. "All right," Nia said, pulling out her phone. "Let's see what a couple of broke girls with big dreams can do." The transformation was slow, painful some days. Tiana painted walls, installed shelves with her uncle, learned how to rewire a broken oven. Nia designed the chalkboard menu by hand. Every corner of that space became a reflection of who they were: resilient, resourceful, and proud. The sign outside was simple, hand-carved, stained dark wood with soft gold letters. Ray's Homegrown Kitchen. Named not after a mentor or a critic. Named after her grandfather, Raymond Lewis, a man who had taught her how to love food when all they had were scraps and soul. The name was hers now. Opening night wasn't flashy. There were no photographers, no bloggers, no critics. Just 5 tables. 3 of them filled, 2 with locals, 1 with Nia's cousins. Tiana wore a clean white apron, her curls pulled back neatly, her knives sharp. She cooked every dish like it was the only one that mattered. Seared catfish with spicy aioli and pickled collards. Slow roasted carrots glazed with brown sugar and thyme. And her grandmother's lemon salmon, just like that first night, only now under her name. When the last dish went out, she leaned against the counter, exhausted but alive, and then, a knock at the door. Tiana turned. David Mercer stood there, a quiet smile on his face. "Hope there's a plate left for a late guest." She blinked. "How did you?" He stepped in. "Someone sent me a menu." Word travels fast when food speaks louder than press releases. He sat at the corner table. She plated one final dish, hands steady. When he took the first bite, he didn't speak, just closed his eyes, and smiled. By the end of the first month, Ray's had a line most nights. People came from other neighborhoods, sometimes from across the city. No advertisements, just whispers. A dish someone couldn't forget. A sauce that reminded them of something their grandmother made. A feeling, a story. And the story was Tiana. One night, while restocking herbs, Nia came in holding a folded newspaper. "You made the food section." Tiana took it slowly. There it was, her name in bold. "From shadows to stars. Tiana Lewis is changing Chicago's culinary scene one plate at a time." She sat down, paper trembling in her hands. "This real?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Nia grinned. "Very." That night, after service ended, Tiana wiped down the counters like always. Then, at the very bottom of the chalkboard menu, she drew a small gold star. Not for fame, not for validation, but for the little girl who used to watch her mom mash sweet potatoes with lemon zest in a tiny kitchen. The girl who learned to cook because no one else would let her. And the woman who stopped waiting for someone else to see her fire, so she lit her own kitchen. The winter air had started to sharpen in Chicago. But inside Ray's, warmth rolled through the open kitchen like a living thing, steam from braised oxtails, slow-cooked greens, skillet cornbread crackling in hot cast iron. It had been 4 months since opening night. 4 months since Tiana Lewis stepped out of the shadows and into her own light. And tonight, for the first time, the dining room was fully booked before the sun even dipped below the skyline. She didn't advertise. She didn't need to. The food told its own story. Each week brought someone new. A retired teacher remembering her childhood meals. A young couple on their first date. A city councilman in a hoodie who begged to try her grandmother's stew. They came not for trends but truth. And Ray's had become a place for that. But behind the rhythm of success, a quiet storm brewed. One night, while Tiana was prepping her citrus-glazed carrots, Nia walked in holding her phone. "You're gonna want to see this," she said, voice serious. Tiana wiped her hands and leaned over the screen. It was a video, a segment on a local news site titled, "The Fall of Raymond Carter, once a star, now silent." The screen showed the man she used to work under, once commanding, now gaunt, sitting at a food truck table, giving a forced smile to the camera. The interviewer's voice echoed, "Your last venture closed after 4 months. Any thoughts on what went wrong?" Raymond hesitated. Then, "People forget fast. That's just the business." Tiana stared at the screen, then turned away. "Do you want to watch the rest?" Nia asked quietly. "No," Tiana said. "Let him figure out who he is when no one's watching." She didn't need to gloat. She had something better. Peace. 2 weeks later, Reyes received an email from an events coordinator at the Midwest Culinary Alliance. Subject line: Keynote invitation, celebrating excellence in Black culinary innovation. Tiana almost deleted it. She thought it was spam. But it wasn't. They wanted her to speak, to share her journey, to be the name on the banner, not just behind the plate. She stared at the screen, overwhelmed. "What would I even say?" she asked Nia. "Say the truth," Nia said, "like you always do." The event took place in a downtown ballroom, the kind of place Tiana used to deliver orders to in the back of catering vans. Now she stood backstage, nerves fluttering beneath her chest like bees. David Mercer greeted her with a hug. "Just be yourself. That's why they invited you." When her name was called, the applause rolled in like a wave. She stepped into the spotlight in a simple black blazer, her curls pinned up, palms slightly damp. Then she began. "I never trained in a culinary school," she said. "I didn't have the pedigree, the connections, or the confidence. But I had stories, in flavors, in smells, in what a single plate could bring back to life. I grew up in a kitchen that smelled like fried okra and boiled hope. I washed dishes in one of the best restaurants in the city. And when I finally cooked something real, something mine, they told me to stay quiet." A hush fell over the room. "But I didn't. And you know what happened next?" Some in the audience nodded. Others teared up. "I'm here because I stopped asking for permission. And I'm standing on the shoulders of every Black woman who fed generations without credit. Every kitchen worker who went unseen. And every person who dared to believe that food, real food, could open doors." The room rose with a standing ovation. And Tiana, for the first time, stood taller than ever. After the speech, a publishing agent approached her. "We'd love a cookbook," she said. "Your voice, your recipes, your story." Tiana blinked. "A book?" She didn't say yes. Not yet. Because later that week, she'd already promised a dozen 6th graders a cooking workshop at her old middle school. And that mattered more. That Friday, she rolled into the school gym with boxes of ingredients, knives wrapped in kitchen towels, and Nia dragging in electric burners. The kids circled around, wide-eyed. "You gonna teach us how to make TikTok pasta?" one girl asked. Tiana laughed. "We're making memory stew. Let me show you where the magic really is." They peeled garlic, chopped onions, stirred with oversized wooden spoons. One boy frowned into the pot. "What's it supposed to taste like?" "Like your favorite sundae," she answered. He didn't understand yet, but someday, he would. Back at Ray's, she began to write. Not a book yet, just pages. Recipes scribbled with side notes about where they came from. Mama's pantry. 1997. Grandpa Ray's fish fry. Used mustard instead of mayo. First dish after quitting. It wasn't just food, it was lineage. One night, as she closed up, she noticed someone sitting outside on the bench near the door. An older man. She walked closer. He stood. It was Raymond Carter. Slimmer, weathered, no coat despite the cold. She stopped in her tracks. He spoke first. "I came to see for myself." Tiana didn't respond right away. "You didn't have to come at all," she said, arms folded. "I know," he replied, "but I'm not here to take anything." He looked at the wooden sign. Then at the door. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I know," she replied, her voice even. "You've built something that matters." She gave a small nod. "I did." Raymond stared at her for a long time, then extended his hand. "Congratulations." She looked down at it, then back up at him. After a pause, She shook it, firmly. No anger, no smile, just truth. Then she turned and walked back inside. She didn't look back. The smell of rosemary and sweet onions filled the air that night. The open kitchen buzzed. Tiana plated dishes with quiet pride. Sleeves rolled, towel tucked in her apron. Everything felt steady now, earned. She glanced toward the window. Outside, a couple waited for a table, hands in their pockets, shivering a little. The line had grown again. Ray's had become more than a restaurant. It was a statement that no matter who tried to silence you, no matter where you started, your story, your fire, your name, deserved to be known. Tiana served the last plate of the night, wiped down the counter, and dimmed the lights. She looked around her small kitchen and smiled to herself. Not because of what she'd achieved, but because it was finally, unquestionably, hers. The end. If this story moved you, please comment below where you're watching from. Rate the story out of 10. And hit that subscribe button. More unforgettable journeys are coming soon on this channel.